Hello and a very good morning to all of you tuned in. This is the Breakfast News and I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. First up, the headlines that we are tracking right now. Another Jawan killed as Pakistan continues ceasefire violations in Jammu and Kashmir. As the Chief of India's Integrated Defence Staff says, India must be prepared for two-front war. Eminent economist Arvind Panagaria appointed to run Prime Minister Narendra Modi's new policy commission, Niti Aayog. After ordinances in coal, insurance and land sectors, Cabinet now approves ordinance for the auction of iron ore and other minerals. BJP constitutes 4-member panel for talks and government formation in Jammu and Kashmir. Will start talks with the PDP today. And music maestro A.R. Rahman celebrates his 48th birthday today. The big story now, in view of fresh ceasefire violations along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistani Rangers, the Director General of the BSF is scheduled to visit the affected zones today. D.K. Pathak will visit the forward areas in Samba and Kathua sectors and review the defence preparedness. He had briefed Home Minister Rajnath Singh yesterday about the heavy firing from Pakistan side in Hiranagar sector of Kathua district. One BSF Jawan had been killed in the firing. Meanwhile, close to 7,000 people residing along the border in the two districts have been evacuated to safer places. All educational institutions in Kathua district have been closed indefinitely. Now, the shelling from across the border has extended a significant distance into the Indian side, with shells exploding 3.5 kilometers inside the Indian territory in places like Chakra, Sherpur and Londi.
आज को पाकिस्तान का फौज बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है गांव से आगे फैल रहा है कब तो पीछे था आज गांव से भी आगे है कम से कम 4 किलोमीटर रेंज जा रहा है हाँ जी तो गांव तो खाली है बच्चे पीछे हैं पशुओं का बहुत मुश्किल है किसान आदमी अभी तो क्या जाएंगे
छोटे बच्चे हमारे साथ रहने के लिए काफ़ी मुश्किलें हैं स्कूलों में जाके डेरे लगा रहे हैं हमारे गांव के लोग
बड़े बड़े मोटर के फायर चल रहे हैं जहाँ पे तो छोटा फायर तो हो नहीं रहा सर तो हम हमारी फैमिली और हम जा रहे हैं जहाँ से
And pointing at Pakistan and China, the Chief of India's Integrated Defence Staff, Air Marshal P.P. Reddy, has said that the country faces security challenges from its immediate neighbourhood. Air Marshal Reddy says India must be prepared for war on two fronts, Chinese and Pakistani. He also said that India needs to be prepared for complete spectrum of conflicts like militant attacks, sub-conventional conflict, intense conventional war and nuclear war.
We are located in a difficult neighborhood with two nuclear-armed adversaries. Our primary external security challenges arise from the immediate neighborhood, that is to the north and west, and to some extent from extended neighborhood, especially terrorism in the name of religion. China's growing assertiveness and cooperation with Pakistan complicates external security environment, and we have to be prepared for a collision and a two-front war.
All right, joining me for a chat this morning is Mr. Alok Bansal, who is the Executive Director of CESA. Thank you so much, Mr. Bansal, for joining us here on Rajya Sabha TV. Mr. Bansal, talking about the ceasefire violations, obviously we are seeing a spate of ceasefire violations along the line of control since December last year. How do you look at it?
See, you must understand that the ceasefire violations started actually post 16th December. 16th December, we had the Peshawar tragedy in Pakistan, and thereafter there was a perception that Pakistan would go after the militants lock, stock and barrel. And Pakistan did launch a comprehensive offensive as far as Taliban is concerned. And for the first time, I think there is no distinction being made as far as good Taliban and bad Taliban is concerned. And Pakistan's Army Chief General Raheel Sharif and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who has generally been very sympathetic to Taliban, are both on board as far as operations against Taliban are concerned. But within Pakistan, today the body politic has got so badly radicalized that there are huge sections of the army which are radicalized, which are not directly under the control of the chief. And it just takes one of these radical elements on the border to start firing, because in the state of affairs that we have today, the government has given the security forces clear instructions that there should be adequate and appropriate reaction. And once firing starts, and these elements of Pakistan army do not want that the operations against Taliban should go on. So one of the very, very sure short way of ensuring that is if you can actually flare up tensions with India, because then Pakistan would be forced to shift its troops from Western Front to the Eastern Front, and the complete annihilation of Taliban, which Pakistani government is aiming at, cannot be brought about. And this we must understand that not only in the army, but within the intelligence agencies also, we have huge number of people who are totally ideologically in congruence with the radical outfits, and that's what we are seeing at the sea also, these boats which are coming up, suspicious boats, this flaring up of a line of control. Otherwise, there is no reason, because at this point of time, Pakistan has no capacity to face India.
Exactly.
It does not have the capacity, but the fact is that there are people within the establishment. Every single attack on army installations within Pakistan has had insiders colluding with the Taliban and other radical elements.
Exactly. But the point is, how should India react to it? Because we have seen over the last weekend how there is a big war of words really going on between India and Pakistan. But the point is, how should India react to it? Obviously, it is the winter time, and we know that this is the time when the ceasefire violations are there. But now, obviously, we are talking about, we just spoke about Chief of India's Integrated Defence Staff talking about the fact that we should be even more prepared. But the question is how?
I think the government of India has taken the right initiative. And today, India's security forces, be it the army or the BSF, are giving equal and if not appropriate retaliation to Pakistan. As far as retaliation is concerned, the Pakistani forces know very well that any action will lead to a greater retaliation, and to that extent they should be a little circumspect. But as I said, at this point of time, the firing is not really driven by a national agenda as far as Pakistan is concerned, but an ideological agenda of individuals. And unfortunately, the situation in line of control is such that once somebody starts the firing, it is virtually impossible for higher-ups to determine as to who actually started the firing.
True.
Because there is an immediate retaliation, and after a few rounds of firing, it's virtually impossible.
Right.
So as far as India is concerned, our equal and opposite reaction is good. As far as the government is concerned, we should give statements depending on what Pakistan is given, and just ignore it while maintaining a tough posture and giving them good retaliatory fire.
Right. Mr. Bansal, we also need to speak about the US aid to Pakistan, but we'll come back to you. For this moment, the US has praised Pakistan's effort to prevent terror groups from operating in its territory, now paving the way for a grant to Pakistan. US Secretary of State John Kerry said that Pakistan has taken adequate action against the terror groups. But India is far from happy with the US's clean chit to Pakistan.
A US pat on the back for Pakistan for what it calls efforts against terror. US Secretary of State John Kerry said the Pakistan government has acted well against terrorist groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. Kerry signed the certification which makes Pakistan eligible to receive aid from United States. Under the Kerry-Lugar bill, Pakistan can now receive an aid package worth $1.5 billion every year. President Barack Obama is expected to clear the funds soon. But the move has not gone down too well in India, with leaders questioning Islamabad's intentions on tackling terror. The recent incidents of Mumbai blast mastermind Zakir Rahman Lakhvi's bail plea and the blast near Gujarat in a boat with suspected terrorists have only fueled tensions.
How the government of the United States decides to spend US taxpayers' money is entirely its prerogative. However, India does not believe that Pakistan is showing either sustained commitment or making significant effort or seizing support or dismantling bases of operations of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Haqqani network, and quite possibly the Al-Qaeda.
If there is such an opinion, we would really want to know on what it is based, because our reading is that Pakistan has been extremely tardy and completely dishonest in dealing with the people who have hurt our country. not only do they hurt our country, but they hurt any chances of this entire region being in peace together. And therefore, no matter what are the compulsions and political reasons for giving clean chits within Pakistan or from outside Pakistan, it's not acceptable to India.
The US decision comes at a crucial time, just weeks ahead of President Barack Obama's visit to India as chief guest on Republic Day. Kerry will also visit Pakistan later this month to hold a strategic dialogue in Islamabad. This decision to provide aid to Pakistan could add to India's discomfort with Washington's line of tackling terror. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
All right, let's go back to Mr. Bansal, who is the Executive Director of CESA. Mr. Bansal, this is really eyebrow-raising because on one hand, we are saying that Mr. Obama is going to attend the Republic Day parade in India, and there we are seeing $500 million aid being certified by John Kerry that the US is going to grant to Pakistan.
See, you need to understand from the US point of view, for the first time in years, Pakistan is actually targeting all Taliban. Because in the recent offensive after 16 December, it's not only the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is being targeted in North Waziristan, but even Haqqani Network, the associates of Mullah Omar, the friendly Taliban like Gul Bahadur, etc., Hafiz Gul Bahadur, etc., have all been targeted. So from US point of view, this is actually a very welcome move because for the first time, Pakistan and Afghanistan have launched simultaneous attacks against Taliban. Afghanistan has launched an offensive in Kunar province. The Pakistan is attacking in North Waziristan, and TTP and all Taliban are actually being cornered.
No,
so
but,
if you look at purely...
Is it enough to give a certification? Because it is saying that the Pakistan is showing sustained efforts. The point is it?
See, point is, at this point of time when US is actually pulling out of Afghanistan, it is dependent on Pakistan. And at least Pakistan, from US point of view, is showing some interest. US is really definitely not concerned about what it does to Lashkar-e-Toiba and other militant groups which are India-specific. Yes. But as far as Afghan-specific groups are concerned, at this point of time, there is some collaboration between Pakistan and Afghanistan. General Raheel Sharif went to Kabul, negotiated with the Afghan security personnel, and Afghan offensive also started in conjunction with Pakistan. So from US point of view, this is actually a welcome move. And accordingly, US has certified, and it's probably trying to keep Pakistan on this track rather than it moves away from it. I agree, from India's point of view, it is not enough, and it is definitely not sufficient.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bansal, for joining us and sharing your perspective on that entire story. Thank you. All right, let's move on in the bulletin now. The centre claims that there are definite indications that the men on board intercepted off the Gujarat coast on New Year's Eve were terrorists. Amid speculation that the vessel may have been a fishing or smuggling boat, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar cited reasons to vindicate the terror boat theory.
After allegedly ignoring several Indian Coast Guard warnings on trespassing into Indian waters and even a hot pursuit, the men on board had blown up themselves and their boat. The incident, as claimed by the government, gave rise to the terror boat hypothesis. Pakistan has claimed the boat belonged to a drug cartel, a premise the Defence Minister rejects strongly.
The most important factor, if you ask me why I will classify them under suspected or probable terrorist, is because they committed suicide. Harakiri. A normal boat, even carrying some drug, can throw away the drug and surrender.
Parrikar also rejected the fishing boat theory, stressing that every condition pointed to the terror boat conclusion.
The location is not normal sea route or a normal route for the fishing boats. This is a different route.
The veracity of these claims has turned into a sparring issue between the government and opposition. With the Congress raising questions on the nature of the boat, the BJP had hit out, accusing the Congress of helping Pakistan. The Congress seeks definite evidence over claims.
What is the difficulty in making the evidence public? After all, national security is not the exclusive preserve of government. National security is the common concern of each and every citizen of this country.
An unnecessary controversy has broken out, a political controversy, and the Congress party is trying to play politics with national security. This is highly regrettable and condemnable.
The Defence Ministry is reported to be preparing a full internal review of the operation, which will include studying communications and video footage to provide minute-to-minute details of what happened. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
All right, we'll take a very short break here. Coming up ahead, BJP to formally begin talks with the PDP on government formation in Jammu and Kashmir today. Welcome back after the break. Now, the process of transforming India as promised by the Prime Minister has begun. Members of the newly formed Niti Aayog were appointed yesterday. The members include noted economists and some key ministers. And as the first step in the replacement of the Planning Commission, the government has archived the website of the erstwhile body.
The Planning Commission website page can now only be used for reference. The main page of the Commission's archived website also provides information about replacing of the Commission by the Niti Aayog. The Niti Aayog tweeted, and I quote, "Administrative reforms are underway. The Niti Aayog website will be ready in a few days. The process for transforming India has begun." Unquote. The Prime Minister, who will be chairman of the Niti Aayog, also made key appointments to the new body. Arvind Pangaria, a free market economist who teaches at Columbia University in the United States, has been appointed the first vice chairman. In addition, economist Bibek Devroy and former DRDO chief V.K. Saraswat were appointed as full-time members. Union ministers Rajnath Singh, Arun Jaitley, Suresh Prabhu and Radha Mohan Singh were appointed as ex officio members, while Nitin Gadkari, Smriti Zubin Irani and Thawar Chand Gehlot will be special invitees. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi met his cabinet ministers and ministers of state yesterday at his residence. In the interactive session with his ministers, Prime Minister Modi denounced the practice of utilizing funds at the end of the financial year, saying that budgetary allocations for the respective ministries should be spent evenly through the year. With budgetary exercise underway, he also asked his ministers to get out-of-the-box ideas from the common man through electronic means. Modi appealed to all ministers to also pay attention to the 7 northeastern states. And in other news, after adopting the ordinance route to bring about reforms in the coal, insurance and land sectors, the Cabinet has also approved an ordinance for the auction of iron ore and other minerals. The ordinance will bring about amendments to the Mining and Minerals Development and Regulation Act of 1957 and will extend the reforms underway in the coal sector to minerals such as iron ore and bauxite. The changes would stipulate that minerals other than coal henceforth will also be allocated through the auction route. However, the Federation of Indian Mineral Industries has said that the auction route would sound death knell for the industry and lead to monopolistic practices and wastage of resources. The Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Bill of 2014 could not be tabled during the winter session of Parliament that ended last month. And the Union Cabinet has finalized the reserve price for spectrum auction for various bands. The centre hopes to earn revenues of close to 65,000 crore rupees from the auction of 380.75 MHz spectrum, out of which 16,000 crore is expected to be finalized in this financial year itself. Sectoral regulator TRAI had already given recommendations on the base price and other modalities for the auction of the radio waves in 800 MHz, 900 1800 and 2100 MHz. It has also suggested that all the bands should be auctioned simultaneously. And on to some political news. Well, the BJP has constituted a 4-member panel comprising General Secretary Ram Madhav and senior Jammu and Kashmir leaders Jitendra Singh, Jugal Kishore Sharma and Nirmal Singh to take forward the negotiations with the PDP. The panel will be headed by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. The talks with the PDP's interlocutors will begin in a national capital today and are expected to end in 2 or 3 days. There are indications that the BJP may not insist on having its chief minister and may settle for the deputy chief minister's post. There are also questions about the ideological differences between the two parties, but the BJP still sounds confident of a positive outcome. It has been almost 2 weeks since the result for the assembly polls were declared. With no party getting a majority, talks have been underway to form a coalition government in the state. The governor has given time till 19th of January to form a government in Jammu and Kashmir.
पीडीपी के तरफ से भी कुछ पहल है, उस पहल को आगे बढ़ाते हुए विषयों पर चर्चा परामर्श करना है, ऐसा विचार हुआ है।
ऐसे देखिए, भारतीय जनता पार्टी बड़ी गंभीरता के साथ आगे बढ़ रही है और जल्दबाजी में कोई भी कदम उठाना नहीं चाहती, क्योंकि भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जो मैंडेट मिला है वो सरकार बनाने के लिए मिला है और अब जो गठबंधन बने, स्थायी गठबंधन बने और 6 साल के लिए सरकार चले, भारतीय जनता पार्टी का ये पूरा प्रयास है।
And let's take a look at other national news and updates in nationwide. The 13th edition of the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas will start in Gandhinagar tomorrow. The event will also host a Khadi Utsav to feature designs by weavers from Saurashtra and Surendranagar. It will also showcase the life and work of Father of the Nation Mahatma Gandhi to nearly 4,000 global Indians who are expected to attend the event in the city named after him. The students of Jadavpur University launched a fast unto death yesterday, demanding the resignation of Vice-Chancellor Abhijit Chakrabarti. The students also demanded a judicial probe into the police crackdown in the campus. At least 10 students sat onto death outside the Aurobindo Bhavan, where the police launched a crackdown on students on 17th of September. Bihar Chief Minister Jitan Ram Majhi has become the latest target of shoe-throwing protesters. A youth hurled a shoe at Manji at a public meeting in Patna, accusing him of playing caste politics. He alleged that politicians in the state were only doing lip service in the name of development of backward sections of society. He was immediately detained by the police. The Chief Minister ducked and escaped unhurt. It was a narrowing beginning to the week for morning commuters to Delhi from Ghaziabad after a stretch of the National Highway 24 caved in, causing massive traffic jams. A 10-foot deep ditch appeared approximately 12 kilometers from the Delhi border, forcing police to block the road and divert traffic. Officials say that a leaking pipeline is suspected of causing the cave-in. And on to some international news. Well, divers from the US Navy have joined the search for the black box of the crashed Air Asia flight. The divers are scanning the seafloor of the Indonesia coast where the jet is believed to have gone down. They are using sophisticated sonar and imaging equipment known as Sea-Scan. The Sea-Scan will give the team an image of the sea bottom. Meanwhile, there are more bodies recovered yesterday as the search continued. Search teams reported that an Indonesian patrol vessel had found what could possibly be the tail of the aircraft where the crucial black box and flight data recorders are located.
3 more bodies recovered as the search and rescue mission continues for the Air Asia plane that crashed over the Java Sea. More wreckage was also found, reportedly of the tail of the plane, where the crucial black box is located.
Kita sudah menemukan 10 jasad dari korban dan sejumlah besar barang-barang yang merupakan pecahan daripada Air Asia. Barang-barang ini diserahkan kepada pihak-pihak bank berwajib dalam hal ini KNKT.
Berdasarkan temuan serpihan-serpihan, memang kelihatannya badan pesawat ini patah atau pecah, berpisah antara bodi dengan ekornya. Dari hasil scanning ini masih belum pasti juga. Posisinya juga belum pasti juga.
Meanwhile, Indonesia launched a separate probe into the flight licenses following reports that the AirAsia QZ8501 did not have permission to fly on the day it crashed.
AA tidak salah kok sudah dibekukan. Itu kan ya pertanyaannya ya. Identifikasi kita sudah jelas dia salah. Karena tidak terbang di waktu yang telah diberikan persetujuan.
Indonesian officials said that 260 national and international doctors are working to identify the remains recovered using fingerprints, dental records and bone DNA. Out of the 37 bodies recovered so far, only 9 have been identified. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And more international news and updates in World Wrap. French President François Hollande has said that Western sanctions against Russia must be stopped if progress is made in resolving the Ukraine crisis. The French president also said that Europe must keep its communication lines with Putin open. Hollande also said that Putin must know where to stop, as it has become costly for him after sanctions imposed on Russia by the EU and the United States. A Mexican judge has issued an arrest warrant against the wife of the mayor of the Mexican town of Iguala in the case of the 43 abducted students. The students have mostly been likely transferred to a high-security prison. Mexican authorities said that both the mayor and his wife are the probable masterminds behind the disappearance of the student and teachers in September. The students went missing on 26th of September from Iguala after they clashed with the police. 4 activists of the Bangladesh's main opposition party were shot dead during clashes with supporters of the ruling Awami League party and security forces yesterday on the first anniversary of the re-election of the government. The incident forced the deployment of paramilitary forces as opposition leader Khaleda Zia also announced an indefinite nationwide blockade. According to reports, at least 200 people were injured in the violence in different parts of the country. A fierce gun battle continued between Syrian government forces and various rebel groups as the government forces shelled on rebel-held areas in the Syrian capital of Damascus and Daras province. Syrian forces have been trying to dislodge insurgents from Jobar, which was captured by anti-Assad fighters in 2013. All right, and moving on to cricket, and the fourth and final test match of the Border Gavaskar Trophy is underway at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Australia have started on a strong note with openers Chris Rogers and David Warner giving the team a solid start. Warner slammed his 14th half-century while Chris Rogers completed his 5th successive 50 in the first session of the day. Earlier, Australia won the toss and elected to bat first. Australia have won 10 out of their past 11 matches at this ground and they have already won the series 2-0. Meanwhile, there was an outpouring of emotions from the Aussie cricketers and fans over the fallen mate Philip Hughes. A plaque was installed in his honour at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The Australian cricketers are playing here for the first time since Hughes' death on this ground in November last year. Well, that's all in this edition of Breakfast News. But before we go, music maestro A.R. Rahman turns 48 years old today. The man, also known as the Mozart of Madras, has given us some beautiful compositions in several languages. Here is our selection of some of his best songs. Take a listen and thanks for watching. Have a great day ahead.
आजा जिंद शामी आने के तले आजा जरी वाले नीले आसमाने के तले
And the Oscar goes to A.R. Rahman, the Slumdog Millionaire.